I caught my husband with my son's fiancée. Just days before the wedding. I was ready to confront him until my son stopped me. He whispered, "Mom, I already knew, and it's worse than you think." Now the wedding isn't a celebration, it's a battlefield of secrets waiting to explode. Please hit that like button and subscribe. I'd love to know what country you are listening from. Drop a comment below and enjoy the listen. She remembered the way her husband had smiled at the fiancé during dinner, the way his hand lingered too long when he passed her the wine. She remembered the fiancé's laugh, bright and rehearsed, her eyes flickering toward Daniel when she thought no one noticed. Had it all been there, hidden in plain sight? By the time she reached the house, her heart was pounding. She parked the car, carried the cake inside, and set it on the kitchen counter. The house was quiet, the air heavy. Her son was in the living room, his face pale, his eyes shadowed. He looked up as she entered, his expression unreadable. "Mom," he said softly. Elena opened her mouth, ready to confront, ready to demand answers. But before she could speak, her son crossed the room quickly, his hand gripping her arm. "Don't," he whispered. She stared at him, stunned. "Don't what?" His eyes were dark, his voice low. "Don't confront him." "Not yet." Elena's breath caught. "Why?" "He's with her." "He's with your fiancé." Her son's grip tightened. His whisper was sharp, urgent. "I already knew. And it's worse than you think." The words hung in the air, heavy, suffocating. Elena felt her knees weaken, her breath falter. "You knew?" she asked, her voice trembling. Her son nodded, his jaw tight. "I've known for weeks. I didn't tell you because it's not just an affair. It's deeper. It's dangerous." Elena's heart pounded. "Dangerous? What do you mean?" He shook his head, his eyes filled with shadows. "Not now. Not here. Just trust me. Don't confront him." "Not yet." Elena stared at him, her mind spinning. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, to tear the truth from him. But his eyes held hers, steady, pleading. "Please," he whispered. "Wait." That night, Elena lay awake in her room, the silence pressing against her chest. She thought of the cashier's whisper, of her son's warning, of the fiancé's smile. She thought of her husband, Daniel, his laughter echoing through the house, his charm filling every room. She thought of the way he had built their life on appearances, on masks, on carefully constructed lies. And she thought of her son, his whisper heavy with secrets, his eyes shadowed with truths she could not yet see. The house was quiet, but Elena felt the storm gathering. She knew the wedding would not be a celebration. It would be a battlefield. And she would have to decide whether to intervene, or let it burn. The house was heavy with silence. The cake sat untouched on the kitchen counter, its frosting gleaming under the dim light. Elena stood in the doorway, her hands trembling, her mind spinning. Her son's words echoed in her head, "I already knew. And it's worse than you think." She wanted to demand answers, to shake the truth out of him, but his face was pale, his eyes shadowed, his jaw tight with secrets. "Sit down," he said quietly, gesturing toward the living room. Elena obeyed, lowering herself onto the couch. Her son sat across from her, his hands clasped tightly, his knuckles white. "You can't confront Dad," he began, his voice low, steady. "Not yet. If you do, everything will explode before we're ready." Elena's breath caught. "Ready for what?" His eyes flickered, dark and restless. "For the truth. For all of it." She leaned forward, her voice trembling. "You're telling me he's with her, your fiancé. That's betrayal enough. What could possibly be worse?" Her son hesitated, his gaze dropping to the floor. "It's not just an affair. It's a deal. A plan. Something they've been building together." Elena's heart pounded. "A plan?" He nodded slowly. "Money. Reputation. Control. She's not marrying me for love. She's marrying me for what Dad promised her. And he's using her to cover his own tracks. Elena's mind reeled. Tracks? What tracks? Her son's voice dropped to a whisper. Mercer. The name struck her like a blade. She remembered the photograph tucked in the journal, the scarred man's face, the whispers of danger. Mercer? The name struck her like a blade. She remembered the photograph tucked in the journal, the scarred man's face, the whispers of danger. Mercer, she repeated, her voice trembling. Her son nodded. Dad's been tied to him for years. Deals, money, favors. Mercer doesn't forgive. He doesn't forget. And now, Dad's trying to bury it all under this marriage. Elena's breath faltered. And she knows? Her son's jaw tightened. She knows enough. She's part of it. She's not just betraying me, she's helping him. And if you confront them now, they'll twist it. They'll make you look crazy. They'll bury the truth before anyone sees it. Elena pressed her hands to her face, her heart pounding. So what do we do? Her son leaned forward, his eyes burning. We wait. We let the wedding happen. And then, we expose them. In front of everyone. No more secrets. No more lies. Elena's breath caught. At the wedding? He nodded. Yes. It's the only way. If we do it privately, they'll deny it. If we do it publicly, they can't escape. Elena's chest tightened. She imagined the guests, the vows, the laughter, and then the collapse, the chaos, the truth spilling into the open. Are you sure? She whispered. Her son's voice was steady. It's the only way. He stood, his posture rigid, his voice sharp. But you have to promise me something. Don't say a word until then. Don't confront him. Don't confront her. Just watch. Listen. Wait. Elena's eyes filled with tears. You're asking me to stay silent while they destroy us. Her son's gaze softened. No. I'm asking you to stay silent so we can destroy them. That night, Elena lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, but her mind was loud. She thought of her husband, his laughter echoing through the halls. She thought of the fiancé, her smile rehearsed, her eyes flickering with secrets. And she thought of her son, his whisper heavy with truth, his plan sharp with vengeance. She knew the wedding would not be a celebration. It would be a reckoning. And she would have to decide whether to intervene, or let it burn. The house was quiet, but Elena's mind was loud. Her son's warning, "It's worse than you think," echoed in her chest like a drumbeat. She couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind outside seemed to whisper secrets she wasn't meant to hear. She rose from bed in the middle of the night, her bare feet cold against the wooden floor. The silence pressed against her ears as she moved through the hallway. She knew where she had to go. Daniel's study. The door creaked open, revealing shelves lined with books, papers stacked neatly on the desk, and the faint smell of tobacco lingering in the air. Elena's heart pounded as she stepped inside. She had been in this room countless times before, but tonight it felt different, like trespassing into a forbidden world. Her eyes scanned the desk. Bills, receipts, letters. Nothing unusual. But then she noticed the drawer, slightly ajar, as if hastily closed. She pulled it open. Inside lay a leather-bound journal, its cover worn, its edges frayed. She lifted it carefully, her hands trembling. She opened the journal, the pages filled with Daniel's handwriting, sharp, deliberate, controlled. But the words were not the musings of a husband or father. They were records. Transactions. Meetings. Names. And one name appeared again and again. Mercer. Elena's breath caught. She traced the letters with her finger, her chest tightening. Mercer was everywhere, notes about money transfers, meetings in shadowed cafes, whispered deals. And then, scattered among the entries, another name appeared. Auntie. Her son's fiancée. Elena's stomach twisted. She read quickly, her eyes darting across the pages. The entries were fragmented, coded, but the meaning was clear. Daniel and Auntie were not just lovers. They were partners. Partners in betrayal. Partners in deception. Partners in something darker. Tucked between the pages was a photograph. Elena pulled it out, her hands shaking. It was Mercer. His scarred face stared back at her, his eyes cold, his presence heavy. He stood beside Daniel, their hands clasped in a handshake, their smiles sharp and hollow. And behind them, blurred but unmistakable, was Auntie. Elena's breath faltered. She pressed the photo to her chest, her heart pounding. Her son had been right. It was worse than she thought. She sank into the chair, the journal open before her, the photograph burning in her hands. Her husband was not just betraying her. He was entangled in something dangerous, something that reached beyond family, beyond love. And Auntie was not just betraying her son. She was complicit. Elena's mind raced. She thought of the wedding, the guests, the vows. She thought of the collapse that was coming, the reckoning her son had promised. She thought of silence. Silence had always been her weapon. But now, silence was heavy with truth. The door creaked. Elena looked up, startled. Her son stood in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes shadowed. "You found it," he said softly. Elena's breath caught. The journal. The photograph. Mercer. Auntie. All of it. He nodded, his jaw tight. "Now you understand." Elena's voice trembled. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" His gaze dropped. "Because I needed you to see it yourself. To feel it. To know it's real." Elena's chest tightened. "And the wedding?" His eyes burned. "It's the perfect stage. They think they're safe. They think they've won. But when the truth comes out, it will destroy them." Elena closed the journal, her hands steady now. She looked at her son, her voice calm but sharp. "Then we wait. We let the wedding happen. And when the moment comes, we let the truth speak." Her son nodded, his eyes filled with determination. Elena rose, the journal clutched in her hands. She felt the weight of secrets, the burden of silence, the power of truth. She knew the wedding would not be a union. It would be a battlefield. And she would have to decide whether to intervene, or let it burn. The house glowed with warm light, its rooms filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the rustle of elegant dresses. The engagement party was meant to be a celebration, a prelude to the wedding. Guests smiled, their voices rising in cheerful tones, but beneath the surface, Elena felt the tension like a wire pulled too tight. She stood near the dining table, her hands wrapped around a glass of wine she hadn't touched. The journal's revelations burned in her mind. Mercer's name. Auntie's complicity. Daniel's betrayal. And her son's plan, to expose it all at the wedding. Tonight was a rehearsal for disaster. Family friends filled the room, their laughter masking curiosity. Some whispered about the upcoming ceremony, others admired Aunty's dress, a shimmering silver gown that caught the light with every movement. Daniel moved through the crowd with practiced charm, his smile flawless, his voice smooth. He shook hands, embraced relatives, and whispered compliments into ears. To anyone watching, he was the perfect host, the proud father celebrating his son's future. But Elena saw the cracks. She saw the way his eyes lingered on Auntie, the way his hand brushed hers when no one was looking. She saw the hunger in his gaze, the secret in his smile. And she saw Auntie's response, her laugh too bright, her touch too familiar, her eyes flickering toward Daniel with a spark that betrayed her role in the deception. Her son stood apart, his posture rigid, his eyes scanning the room. He watched Daniel, watched Auntie, watched the guests. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched. Elena moved toward him, her voice low. "Are you all right?" He nodded, his gaze fixed on the crowd. "I'm watching. I'm waiting. Every move they make, every word they say, it's all part of the mask. But soon, the mask will break." Elena's chest tightened. "And tonight?" His eyes flickered. "Tonight is just the rehearsal. The real collapse will come at the wedding." Daniel raised his glass, his voice carrying across the room. "To my son, and to his beautiful bride-to-be. May their future be filled with love, joy, and endless happiness." The guests cheered, their glasses clinking. Anka smiled, her eyes shining, her hand resting lightly on Daniel's arm. Elena's stomach twisted. She saw the truth in that touch, the betrayal hidden beneath the toast. Her son's voice whispered in her ear. "Do you see it? Do you see how they play their roles?" Elena nodded, her heart pounding. "Yes. I see it." Later, as the guests mingled, Elena slipped into the hallway. The noise of the party faded, replaced by the quiet hum of the house. She leaned against the wall, her breath shallow. Anka appeared, her silver gown shimmering in the dim light. She smiled, her voice soft. "You look tired, Elena. Are you enjoying the party?" Elena forced a smile. "It's lovely." Anka's eyes flickered, her smile sharp. "It's just the beginning. The wedding will be unforgettable." Elena's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to tear the truth from her, but she remembered her son's warning. "Wait. Watch. Silence is your weapon." She nodded, her voice calm. "Yes. Unforgettable." As the night wore on, Elena watched from the corner of the room. She saw Daniel and Anka exchange glances, their smiles too rehearsed, their touches too deliberate. She saw the guests laugh, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. And she saw her son, his eyes burning, his silence heavy with truth. The engagement party was a celebration on the surface. But beneath, it was a battlefield waiting to erupt. Elena knew the wedding would not be vows and rings. It would be revelations and collapse. And she would have to decide whether to intervene, or let it burn. The house was quiet after the engagement party. The laughter of guests had faded, the clinking of glasses silenced, the silver gown folded away. But Elena could still feel the echoes, the glances between Daniel and Anka, the rehearsed smiles, the touches too deliberate. She sat alone in the living room, the journal hidden beneath the cushion beside her. The photograph of Mercer burned in her mind. She knew the truth now. And she knew Daniel was hiding more than just an affair. It was time to press him. Daniel entered the room, his tie loosened, his smile faint. He looked tired, but his eyes still carried that glimmer, the charm that had fooled so many. Elena rose slowly, her voice calm but sharp. "We need to talk." Daniel paused, his smile flickering. "About what?" Elena's gaze held his. "About Anka. About Mercer. About the things you've been hiding." His face froze, the mask slipping for just a moment. Then he laughed, smooth and practiced. "You've been listening to gossip again. You always let people get into your head." Elena's chest tightened. "Don't lie to me, Daniel. I've seen the journal. I've seen the photograph." Daniel's smile faltered. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. "You went through my things?" Elena's voice rose, steady and fierce. "You left them where I could find them. You wanted me to see, didn't you? Or maybe you thought I'd never look. But I did. And now I know." Daniel stepped closer, his voice low, dangerous. "You don't know anything. Mercer is business. Anka is complicated. But it's nothing you need to worry about." Elena's breath caught. "Nothing I need to worry about?" "You're destroying our family. You're betraying your son. And you're dragging us into something darker than you can control." Daniel's eyes burned. You think you understand, but you don't. Mercer doesn't forgive. He doesn't forget. I did what I had to do. For us. For this family. Elena's heart pounded. For us? Or for yourself? His silence was heavy, his mask cracking. Elena pressed harder. And Anka? What is she to you? A partner? A lover? A pawn? Daniel's jaw clenched. She's necessary. Elena's voice trembled with fury. Necessary? She's supposed to marry your son. She's supposed to be part of his future. And you've turned her into part of your scheme. Daniel's voice dropped, sharp and cold. If you expose this, you'll destroy everything. Not just me. Not just Anka. You'll destroy him too. Do you want that? Do you want your son ruined? Elena's breath faltered. She thought of her son, his whisper heavy with truth. It's worse than you think. Her voice was steady. He already knows. He's stronger than you think. And he's ready to fight. Daniel's eyes widened, his mask slipping completely. He knows? Elena nodded. Yes. He knows. And he's waiting. For the wedding. For the moment when the truth will burn everything you've built. Daniel's face twisted, his charm gone, his mask shattered. He turned away, his shoulders tense, his voice low. You don't understand what you're playing with. Mercer isn't just a name in a journal. He's a shadow. And once he's here, none of us will escape. Elena's chest tightened. Then maybe it's time the shadows came into the light. Daniel spun, his eyes blazing. You'll regret this. Elena's voice was calm, steady, unyielding. No, Daniel. You'll regret it. He stormed out of the room, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Elena sank back onto the couch, her hands trembling, her heart pounding. She pulled the journal from beneath the cushion, clutching it tightly. She knew the confrontation had cracked the mask. Daniel was unraveling. His lies were collapsing. And the wedding would be the final collapse. The days after the engagement party carried a strange quiet. The laughter of guests had faded, but Elena felt the echoes of betrayal in every corner of the house. Daniel moved with forced cheer, his mask repaired but fragile. Her son remained watchful, his silence heavy with plans. And Anka, the fiancée, glowed brighter than ever. She smiled, she laughed, she played her role with flawless precision. But Elena had seen the cracks. She had seen the way Anka's eyes lingered on Daniel, the way her touch betrayed more than affection. It was time to see what lay beneath the mask. Elena found her in the garden one afternoon, the November air crisp, the grapevines heavy with dew. Anka stood near the stone wall, her silver scarf wrapped tightly around her shoulders, her gaze distant. Elena approached slowly, her voice calm. It's beautiful out here. Anka turned, her smile bright. Yes. Peaceful. Elena studied her carefully. You must be excited. The wedding is so close. Anka's smile widened, but her eyes flickered. Of course. It will be unforgettable. Elena's chest tightened. She remembered those same words whispered at the engagement party. Unforgettable. A promise or a threat? Elena pressed gently. You've been spending a lot of time with Daniel. Anka's smile faltered for just a moment. He's been helping with the arrangements. He wants everything perfect. Elena's gaze held hers. Helping? Or something more? Anka's eyes narrowed, her voice sharp. What are you implying? Elena's voice was steady. I'm not implying. I'm asking. Because I've seen the way you look at him. And I've seen the way he looks at you. Anka's lips parted, her breath catching. For a moment, the mask slipped. Then she laughed, smooth and practiced. You're imagining things. Stress, perhaps. Weddings can do that. But Elena saw the truth in her eyes. Anka stepped closer, her voice low, her smile sharp. You think you know me, Elena. But you don't. You see what I allow you to see. Nothing more. Elena's breath caught. Then tell me. Who are you really? Anka's eyes burned. I am someone who doesn't settle. Someone who doesn't waste her life on small dreams. Daniel understands that. He offers more than your son ever could. Elena's chest tightened. You're marrying my son. Anka's smile was cold. Yes. And through him, I gain everything Daniel promised. Money. Power. Reputation. Your son is the key. But Daniel. Daniel is the door. Elena's stomach twisted. She felt the weight of her son's warning, it's worse than you think. Anka leaned closer, her voice a whisper. If you try to stop me, you'll regret it. Daniel needs me. Mercer needs me. And when the wedding comes, everything will fall into place. You can either stay silent, or be destroyed with him. Elena's breath faltered. You're playing with fire. Anka's smile sharpened. No. I am the fire. Later that evening, Elena found her son in the study, his eyes scanning the journal again. She told him everything, Anka's words, her threat, her mask slipping. His jaw tightened, his voice sharp. She's worse than I thought. She's not just complicit. She's ambitious. She wants everything. Elena's chest tightened. And she'll use you to get it. Her son's eyes burned. Not anymore. At the wedding, I'll expose her. I'll expose them both. And when the truth comes out, they'll have nothing left. Elena sat beside him, her hands trembling. And if it destroys us too? Her son's gaze held hers, steady, unyielding. Then let it burn. Better ruins built on truth than a house built on lies. Elena's breath caught. She thought of the guests, the vows, the collapse. She thought of silence, heavy with truth. She knew the wedding would not be a union. It would be a battlefield. And she would have to decide whether to intervene, or let it burn. The journal lay open on the desk, its pages filled with Daniel's sharp handwriting. Mercer's name appeared again and again, a shadow woven into every line. Anka's name was there too, scattered like shards of glass. Elena sat beside her son, the photograph of Mercer burning between them. Her son's eyes were steady, his jaw tight. It has to happen at the wedding, he said. It's the only way. Her son's eyes were steady, his jaw tight. It has to happen at the wedding, he said. It's the only way. Elena's chest tightened. You're certain? He nodded. If I expose them privately, they'll deny it. They'll twist it. But if I expose them in front of everyone, family, friends, the community, they can't escape. Their lies will collapse in the open. He leaned forward, his voice low, deliberate. I'll wait until the vows. That's when everyone is watching, when the silence is deepest. I'll stand, and I'll tell them. About Dad. About Anka. About Mercer. About everything. Elena's breath caught. She imagined the church, the guests, the vows interrupted by truth. She imagined the collapse, the chaos, the reckoning. Her son's eyes burned. I'll show them the journal. The photograph. The proof. They won't be able to deny it. Elena's voice trembled. And what if they try? What if they turn it against you? His jaw tightened. Then I'll keep speaking. I won't stop until everyone sees. Until everyone knows. Elena pressed her hands to her face, her heart pounding. You're risking everything. Your reputation. Your future. Your life. Her son's voice was steady. Better to lose everything built on lies than to live in silence. I won't let them destroy me. I won't let them destroy us. Elena's chest tightened. She thought of Anka's words in the garden, I am the fire. She thought of Daniel's warning, Mercer doesn't forgive. Her voice was soft. And Mercer? Her son's eyes flickered. Mercer is already here. His shadow is everywhere. But if I expose Dad, Mercer loses his shield. He'll have nothing left to hide behind. Over the next days, her son prepared quietly. He copied pages from the journal, tucked the photograph into his pocket, rehearsed his words in silence. He moved through the house with calm determination, his eyes steady, his silence heavy. Elena watched him, her heart torn. She wanted to protect him, to shield him from the storm, but she knew he was right. The truth had to come out. One evening, she found him in the study, the journal spread before him, his pen scratching across paper. What are you writing? She asked softly. He looked up, his eyes burning. My vows. Not to her. Not to Dad. To the truth. To myself. To the silence that will finally speak. Elena's breath caught. She felt the weight of his words, the power of his resolve. That night, Elena lay awake, her mind racing. She thought of the guests, the vows, the collapse. She thought of her son, his plan sharp with vengeance, his silence heavy with truth. She thought of Daniel, his mask cracking, his lies unraveling. She thought of Anka, her ambition burning, her threat sharp. And she thought of Mercer, the scarred man in the photograph, his shadow looming over them all. She knew the wedding would not be a union. It would be a battlefield. And she would have to decide whether to intervene, or let it burn. The days leading up to the wedding were heavy with silence. The house seemed to breathe with secrets, every wall holding its own whisper. Elena moved through the rooms like a ghost, her mind torn between fear and resolve. Her son was steady, his plan sharp, his silence heavy with truth. He rehearsed his words in the study, his eyes burning with determination. Daniel moved with forced cheer, his mask repaired but fragile. And Anka glowed brighter than ever, her ambition hidden behind flawless smiles. But Elena's heart was torn. She knew the collapse was coming. She knew the wedding would not be vows and rings, it would be revelations and ruin. And she knew she had to decide, intervene, or let it burn. One evening, Elena sat alone in her room, the journal open before her, the photograph of Mercer burning in her hands. She traced the scarred face with her finger, her chest tightening. She thought of her son, his whisper heavy with truth, it's worse than you think. She thought of Anka, her threat sharp, I am the fire. She thought of Daniel, his mask cracking, his warning cold, Mercer doesn't forgive. And she thought of silence. Silence had always been her weapon. But now, silence was heavy with choice. Her son entered quietly, his eyes shadowed, his voice soft. You're worried. Elena looked up, her breath trembling. You're risking everything. He sat beside her, his hand resting on hers. I know. But it has to be done. If I stay silent, they win. If I speak, the truth wins. Elena's chest tightened. And if it destroys you? His gaze held hers, steady, unyielding. Then let it destroy me. Better ruins built on truth than a life built on lies. Elena's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to protect him, to shield him from the storm, but she knew he was right. The truth had to come out. That night, Elena dreamed of the wedding. She saw the church, the guests, the vows. She saw Daniel and Anka, their smiles sharp, their lies heavy. She saw her son, his voice rising, his truth burning. And she saw herself, standing in silence, watching as the collapse unfolded. She woke with her heart pounding, her breath shallow. She knew the dream was not just a vision, it was a choice. The next morning, Daniel approached her in the kitchen, his smile forced, his voice smooth. You've been quiet. Elena's gaze held his. And you've been lying. His smile faltered, his eyes narrowing. You don't understand what you're playing with. Mercer isn't just a name. He's a shadow. And once he's here, none of us will escape. Elena's voice was calm, steady. Then maybe it's time the shadows came into the light. Daniel's jaw tightened. You'll regret this. Elena's voice was sharp. No, Daniel. You'll regret it. That evening, Elena sat with her son in the study, the journal open between them. He rehearsed his words again, his voice steady, his resolve unyielding. Elena listened, her heart torn. She wanted to intervene, to protect him, to shield him from the storm. But she knew the truth had to come out. She closed the journal, her hands steady now. Then we wait. We let the wedding happen. And when the moment comes, we let the truth speak. Her son nodded, his eyes burning. Elena felt the weight of silence, the burden of choice, the power of truth. She knew the wedding would not be a union. It would be a battlefield. And she had made her choice. She would let it burn. The church was dressed in white roses and golden ribbons, a picture of perfection. Guests filled the pews, their voices hushed with anticipation. The organ played softly, its notes echoing through the vaulted ceiling. Elena sat near the front, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She felt the weight of silence pressing against her chest. She remembered the journal, the photograph, the whispers. She remembered her son's plan. And she knew the moment was near. Anka walked down the aisle, radiant in her gown, her smile flawless. Daniel sat in the front row, his eyes fixed on her, his gaze burning with hunger and pride. The guests whispered, admiring, oblivious. The priest began the vows. The silence deepened. Elena's heart pounded. She knew her son was waiting. When the priest asked if anyone had reason to object, her son rose. His voice was steady, sharp, unyielding. I do. Gasps filled the church. Heads turned. Anka froze, her smile faltering. Daniel's face twisted, his mask cracking. Her son's voice carried across the room. This wedding is built on lies. My father and my fiancée have betrayed me. They are partners in deception, in greed, in betrayal. And I have proof. He held up the journal, the photograph. The guests murmured, their whispers rising. Daniel stood, his voice sharp. Enough. Sit down. But the mask was gone. His charm had shattered. The guests saw the fury in his eyes, the truth in his face. Anka's voice trembled. He's lying, but her son's words cut through. No. You're the liar. You're the fire. And now everyone sees you burn. The church erupted. Guests shouted, whispers turned to chaos. The priest tried to restore order, but the collapse had begun. Elena sat in silence, her heart pounding, her breath shallow. She watched as the truth spilled into the open, as the lies collapsed, as the masks shattered. She thought of her choice, her silence heavy with truth. She had let it burn. And now, the fire consumed them. Daniel stormed out, his reputation in ruins. Anka fled, her gown trailing behind her, her ambition turned to ash. The guests whispered, their voices heavy with shock. Her son stood tall, his eyes burning, his silence finally broken. He had spoken the truth. He had reclaimed his dignity. Elena rose, her hands steady, her heart heavy but strong. She knew the family was fractured, the house was in ruins. But she also knew the truth had spoken. And in the silence that followed, she felt justice.